readers! I know it's been a while now since I did my last review. My new job is going well and I'm happy that I'm able to actually still read quite a bit while doing kind of like a 9 to 4, 5 days a week. But the thing is, not finding time to do the actual review. So I wrote this like over a week ago, but now I'm getting around to doing the actual review. So today I'm reviewing 3 different YA series. I read the first book in each series, and I thought I'd just put them all together in one review. So the first book I'm going to talk about is called These Things I've Done by Gabrielle Zevin. So there is a second book. I think it's out in September. But okay, the plot of this book, or the series, is it kind of set around this young girl who belongs to this mafia family, and they used to be kind of respected among all the kind of criminal world, but it's just her now, and her brother and her sister and her grandmother, and her parents are dead, and she's just kind of like trying to survive. And it's meant to be dystopian, but this world is not dystopian. It's just the author thinks if she like bans certain things, it makes it dystopian, like chocolate is banned. It just sounds like a depressing world. Water is expensive, paper is expensive, using the telephone is expensive. But one day her dangerous mafia family, what do they smuggle or work with? Chocolate. But yeah, so her ex-boyfriend or her boyfriend is poisoned by chocolate, and she's kind of blamed for it. And then that kind of causes trouble throughout the rest of the book. So I have to say, this author writes in a very detached writing style. I didn't find anything special with the protagonist anyway, but I just felt nothing for her. I didn't really understand her. As well, the author flies through time. Like, I like when authors actually move at a good enough pace, and you know, and they don't just, the whole book doesn't just take place over like a couple of days. But this author goes crazy, because a character would be on the phone and would be like, okay, I'll see you tonight, so, and then the next line would be, after I met up with the person last night. Like, everything was written in the past. The way the protagonist was describing things was all like, what happened yesterday, what happened last night. She'd skip over complete scenes. Okay, I could not grasp the main thread of the plot in this book. At one minute I thought it was about a mafia family, the next I thought it was about this young girl being framed for murder, and then I thought maybe it's about her being in a juvenile detention place, and then I thought maybe it's like this Romeo and Juliet romance, because there's like a cop's son who kind of likes her. And then I thought, is it all going to get her brother in trouble? And because the author doesn't pick a direction, all the plot points are just quite dull, and she doesn't really focus on one, so they're all just kind of like middling. And this is the best description I can go for. You know, if you're at a Mary's, or you might call it a fun fair or carnival or something, and you know that thing where the strong man has to hit the bell or hit something, and the bell goes up, and you try and hit the thing as hard as you can so it'll go to the top. I feel like the author is like hitting it with a feather, and it's barely rising, and the excitement and interest level is just not getting there. It was just quite boring. I did like the romance element to the book. I do think the author could have worked on it a little bit more, and it could have been really good. And I liked her brother and the relationship, because her brother is older than her, but she has a learning disability, so his mental age is younger than her. I kind of thought that was a bit an interesting character. As well, when I first heard about this book, the reason I wanted to read it was because of the mafia family part. I wanted to see a great relationship and family dynamics. You know, father and daughter, mother and daughter, sister and brother, everything. But then when I read it, all her family are dead. So I wanted to read a book with an alive mafia family. But anyway, so I don't think I'm going to read the next book, and I wouldn't really recommend it, because there are a lot better YAs out there, and I wouldn't believe it if I read this as being dystopian. So that's unfortunate. I mean, it's okay, and there was something good in there. it just didn't work out great in the end. Okay, so the next book I'm going to talk about is the first book in the series called the 16 series by Julia Karr, and the first book is called 16 in Roman numerals. Okay, in this again, this is a dystopian series, and in the future, when every girl, I think every girl or every and boy, when they turn 16, they get a tattoo on their wrist hair, and that shows that they're 16, and then they're allowed to have sex and do all this stuff. And as well, I don't think the author described it very well, but it's kind of futuristic in that they have these implants and they can see things, you know, like ads, and communicate with each other that way. Yeah, I do think the author kind of worked a bit well in describing the actual dystopian world. And I know she wanted to throw us in there and not have to explain every single term. But there were times when I was like, what is this? She didn't properly explain it to me. But yeah, so our main character, she's 15 and she's about to get this tattoo and she does not want it. And then she learns some bad things about the government and the other type of government and the thing behind the tattoo. And the society's attitudes to sex and everyone else's attitude to sex, and yeah, like that, I felt like it was a kind of interesting premise to the series, but after reading the first book, I still don't really understand it. Like, why do they have to get this tattoo? I mean, it's the same as now. Well, in Ireland anyway, you're legally allowed to have sex when you're 16. So what difference does having a tattoo make? I feel like it's just an excuse for people to get sexually assaulted, because that's what kind of happens. Like these pervert guys will come up to a girl and then they'll look at her wrist to see if she's 16, and if she's not 16 they'll walk away. That was kind of like the only thing to do with the tattoo. I don't really understand it. It was like the author had this big flashing idea, but there was a lot of like holes behind it. And for such a controversial topic, I felt this book was very underwhelming. It was just very slow moving, nothing was really happening. It wasn't very tense, but I do have to say the ending, like the last 50 pages or so, did get quite exciting, and I enjoyed those. But leading up to that, not much was happening. The main character, like her attitude to sex, like, I don't want it, get it away from me, I never want to think about it. And it got quite tiring after a while. Like, besides that though, I do think the romance was okay. It wasn't great, but you know, it was readable. So I mean, there was an interesting premise in there, and the author, she has some kind of an original idea, but I don't think she thought it through completely. And there is a second book. I actually have the book. It's called Truth. I was going to read it before I did this review, and then I was like, you know what, I'm not really in the mood to read it, and not pushed. Maybe eventually I will read it, but at the moment I'm not planning to. Okay, the final book I'm going to review today is called Bane, and it's the first book in the Vampire Apocalypse by H.M. Ward. Now, out of all the books, this one was I was most excited to read. I thought it sounded great. It reminded me of that movie, what's it called again? Daylighters, where, you know, there's all vampires in the world, and they're kind of running out of humans now, because they think, oh no, we killed all the humans, where are we going to get our food supply? So that's it, the humans are dying out. And in this world as well, I didn't know before I read it, it's covered in snow. I don't know, something happened with the atmosphere, global warming, it's really, really cold. Our main character, Callie, from the description I read, I thought she was the last human ever, and I was like, oh my god, that's going to be brilliant. Imagine the vampire finds her and everything. But no, she's the last wild human. I didn't really get that part. Which means that she's the last human who's allowed to roam around. I don't know how they know this, but in the whole world. And then every other human are in kind of camps, or like, you know, farms, human farms, where they're just kept to breed so they can have enough of a blood supply, even though vampires don't get even that much blood. And because of all inbreeding and everything, and they all have anemia and they all look the same, and then Callie comes along, she's like red hair and pale skin and she's all curvy and she doesn't have anemia. She's really special to all the vampires, and this vampire finds her and she goes through this big dramatic journey. So I mean, it did turn out a bit different than I thought it would. I do think the author should have focused more on the fact she was this last wild human, which means since she was 8 years old when her mother was killed, she was not around any humans. And then in this, I think she's about 17, and finally she sees other humans eventually. But I don't think the author really took this into account. Like, this played no role in the character of Callie. She seems fine around humans. Like, if you were never around humans for like over nearly 10 years, that would have some, you know, impact on you. And her knowledge as well, like, where did she learn these things? She knew what pixie sticks were, so it wasn't as good as I imagined, but I did get into the story and I did enjoy it. And as well, at times it felt very teen-ish in the direction the author went. But I did like the kind of romance in there. I feel like the author missed a step because, again, characters get close really quickly and they go from like fearing each other to like lusting after each other quite quickly. I feel like the author missed a step everywhere. I don't know, there was just something missing from the plot or from the story. I can't put my finger on it. As well, it was a very strange writing style. It was like the way I wrote stories when I was in school, you know, in the third person, but you don't really focus on any person, you just kind of write from everyone's point of view. I didn't really think authors kind of did that anymore. Yeah, so at the beginning it was all from Callie's point of view, and then at chapter 4 I was like, oh, it's from this main guy's point of view. But then later it was just from everyone. Like in the one scene, I actually found it difficult to know who was describing the scene, because if there was more than 2 people there, say like there was a girl and 2 guys, and a guy was describing the scene, like, and a line later the other guy could be describing the scene. Like, there was no distinct change up in the point of view. It was just kind of general, which is quite strange. I do think there's something mysterious about Callie, which I like, and which is good, and the author built up a really good momentum for the next book, and I'm looking forward to reading the next book, which is the only book in this review today that I can say that about. So obviously out of the 3 books I reviewed today, I suppose my favourite one was Bane, the second was 16, and the third, or the worst, was These Things I've Done. But in saying that, I don't think any of them were really brilliant. I can't find a good book or series. Like 90% of the things I've been reading are just not great, have been disappointing. I'm like still looking for that great read. Anyway, that's my review for today on those 3 series. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in to my next review.